Hello, welcome to another episode of Lunch and Learn with Vince. I'm Vince Marino, your host, and I've got a great lineup of guests today. I'm really super excited. I've got SVF, Amy Zucchi Justice, who is the Director of Marketing. She's got a BA in journalism from Monmouth University and has been in marketing ever since. Welcome, Amy. I've got Jay Saldana, who is the Vice President of Engineering at SVF Flow Controls in La Palma, California. He's got a physics degree from California State University. Jay, welcome. And I have Jack McDonald, who is the CEO of SVF. Jack, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about SVF?
Sure. Yes, I'm Jack McDonald. I'm President and CEO of SVF Flow Controls and Maco Norteca. I was born in Philadelphia a long time ago and lived all over the country, educated at Eastern Michigan University with a BBA. And I reside now in Danbury, Connecticut. We're report to headquarters, which is in Brewster, New York, about an hour away from the city.
Fantastic, thank you. So tell us a little bit about SVF. Do you have any cool projects going on? Anything exciting?
Sure. SVF, first of all, has been around since 1982, and we're not just a valve manufacturer, but a company that provides engineered solutions for flow control applications. And we make a wide variety of industrial valves, actuators, and controllers that are used in biotech, oil and gas, food and beverage, and pharmaceutical markets. We're located in La Palma, California, which is just outside of Los Angeles. One of the more engineering installations or solutions that we came up with involved the Deep Horizon oil leak 11 years ago off the coast of Louisiana. You might remember it. Now, when I say it was a leak, it was anything but a leak. It was the largest oil spill ever recorded in the history of marine oil drilling. Over 4 million barrels of oil flowed from the damaged oil rigs system after it exploded in April of 2010, until it was capped 4 months later in July. SVF's actuated valves were used with that cap. So as the oil was flowing out, they put the cap on, the oil flowed through the valves, and then they turned them off with the actuation. And I'm proud to say it stopped the leak and they're still functional today.
That is an amazing introduction. Probably the best one I've had this year. So thank you. and living in Alabama, a Gulf Coast community, I'm quite familiar with the whole BPO thing that happened there, and glad to know that you guys had an integral part in solving that solution. I love to hear how people bring their products to the industry and oftentimes have asked, how have you saved the day? And folks, this is a huge save the day. You saved the whole Gulf. So thank you for that. That's great. So what products does SVF offer? They're not just a valve company. They're not just actuators. Tell us a little bit more.
So with SVF, we actually, as you know, with all applications, each valve requirement is different from the other. You know, there's slight tweaks here and there. So with SVF, we have to make sure that we have a broad range of products to kind of address all of these requirements. There are product families that are a little bit more generic or general in that we're like the Series 8, for example, we have multiple seats and seal materials, multiple metals like carbon steel, stainless steel, or Hastelloy. Each one is slightly different from the other so that the applications we're able to kind of mix and match these components together and address each one specifically. We also have product solutions that are geared towards specific markets and specific applications. For instance, there are what we call the safety valves or the fire safe valves. These valves are typically used in the oil and gas or CNG. We have high pressure valves. And these valves, again, are designed specifically so that they address requirements. For example, on the fire safe valves, it's very interesting because the name itself is kind of cool, fire safe valve. But with any ball valve, you're looking at, you know, metal components, and then you have some soft components in there to help seal it or to help contain that pressure. Well, for fire safe valves, what they have to go through is when the valve itself is subjected to a fire and these soft components kind of melt away, we have to have secondary design elements within that product itself to make sure that even though the soft components are gone, basically, that it still holds the pressure. And then on the other side of that, you know, we also have, I guess, on the other side of the spectrum of the temperature side, we also have products that address very, very cold applications, like cryogenic applications, almost up to -400 degrees Fahrenheit. So each application is different. So we have to make sure that each product that we provide addresses all that stuff. And I'd like to have a quick example on the cold side.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have ever experienced, if you know, you're putting a bottle, you know, a beer bottle or a soda bottle in the freezer to cool it. You know, you want a quick cold beverage, you put something in the freezer. Well, if you're using the beer as an example, that's a sealed vessel. You know, you have liquid in there, you have some gases in there, and then it's all capped and sealed within that glass bottle. You put it in the freezer, things start to change in temperature. There's some thermal expansion that's happening within that process. And if you forget, what happens? You know, you open your freezer and the beer is all over the refrigerator because that bottle had exploded. So in those instances, when we know the application, when we know where it's going to go down to, you know, extreme temperatures, we have to kind of put in place the design elements to make sure that it allows it to expand. So like for a cryo valve application, for instance, that ball, when you close it, there's some fluid that's left in there. And if it gets too cold, of course, it does the same thing as the beer does. It starts to expand. So we got to make sure that we design in some vents on that ball to allow it to do those things. So to allow it to have its own thermal expansion. So those are the kind of things that we have to take into account when we're creating all of this kind of broad offering of products that we have at SVF.
Excellent. So let me ask you again, you're talking to just a regular guy. So the pharmaceutical end of it, is that more where cryogenics would be?
Not necessarily. In the cryogenics, we usually have seen that in the coolest ones that I've seen so far they're going into some of the fuel lines. These are nitrogen or helium fuel lines for like space launchers, you know, rocket launchers.
Yeah.
So they got to make sure that the fuels they're super cooled. So all the valves that are containing these pipelines and the pressures from these fuels have to maintain their sealing capabilities regardless of what the temperature goes down to.
Interesting. What is BPE? Anyone? BPE?
BPE is it's ASME BP. So BPE is basically the processing equipment. It's a standard that was created, I'll say mid-90s. And the standard addresses all things in a pharmaceutical application. So before BPE was actually created, you were able to take an industrial ball valve, put in the proper end connections like tri-clamp end connections, and install it in a pharmaceutical application because there was no standard to address, you know, different requirements. Like I said, in the mid 90s, engineers, I'll say, and from different industries, from different companies kind of all came together and put together a series of standards that address all the specific requirements for a pharmaceutical application. And it's not just on the ball valves too. It's valves, it's instrumentation, it's pipes, it's fittings, it's gaskets. So all of those things are kind of reviewed and taken into account when they're looking at a pharmaceutical project.
Interesting. So it's sort of it's a meeting of the minds, regardless of the various competitive companies, and they basically said we're going to have a UL or API or ANSI kind of a common language or standards, if you will. So
that's correct. And in the beginning, also, when all these people were kind of coming together, SVF was actually part of it. And they helped create, one of the first revisions of the standard. And the standard is, I'll say it's not rewritten, but every 2 years or so, there's a new revision that's released into the market. There are multiple committees for BPE, again, each one addressing specific requirements. So there's one for surface finishes, there's one for dimensions, there's one for material joining or like welding. And each one of those committees meet, I'll say probably once a month. Everybody puts their thoughts together. All the committees put their thoughts together like 3 times a year as they're updating the standard.
Awesome. Jack, you have anything else to add there?
Well, SVF has been doing this for 40 years, and I'm fascinated by some of the applications and where you find them. You walk into, say, a microbrew, and you see all this stainless steel containers and whatnot. And my friends are always saying, "Oh, we got to try this or we got to try that." I'm looking at the valves because I want to see if one of our valves are on. And it's remarkable how many times you run into our product.
That's awesome.
In all kinds of applications.
So let's talk about some specialty products. You mentioned the breweries, for example, but can you get into some other specialty products that are offered?
I'll say back then when SVF was starting to build its name, we actually were taking on a lot of customized projects because a lot of the bigger manufacturers were saying kind of no to some of the very custom solutions. So for the longest time, SVF kind of became known as the valve company to go to if you have these weird applications. SVF has their own design engineering team here in California. So creating a customized solution from beginning to end, we kind of fast track that entire process. We work with AutoCAD, SolidWorks, 3D modeling. We just added 3D simulation so we could do more testing and whatnot. So a lot of these customized solutions we create for our customers. And like I said, these are the ones that really excite our engineers because it's different. It gets a chance for them to be a little bit more creative in the different solutions. We've designed some stuff that go into CNG, for instance, for the dispensing of CNG fuel. I was just at an application the other day where they were using our valves with lotions and toothpaste. So we were talking about these clean pharmaceutical valves for pharma, for food and beverage, for semiconductor. These are the ones that are going into these specific applications. So cool stuff, really.
Yeah. And all too often, you're just average Joe just has no idea the intricacy and the importance of just the material that a valve is made out of. I mean, you said it. I mean, if toothpaste is an example, I mean, that's going from the valve into the tube and into your mouth. So, it's complicated. It's not just something we take for granted every day.
Vince, Jay and I were on an application at a factory where we had an application for valves a few months ago, and it was fascinating. This company still makes records in Southern California, and they had some questions on valves. So Jay says, "Would you like to go?" I said, "Oh my gosh, I'd love to." I was fascinated what they did there, and it's an injection molding, it's pressing it down, and there's our valve, doing its magic and helping produce a record, an old LP like we used to use. And it's the largest record producer in this country, and I think in the world today.
Wow.
They still make them.
That is amazing. I know that records still exist. I didn't know they were still being produced, but it's becoming a kind of a nostalgic trend. People are getting back into vinyl.
Right.
And how fun. So I've got a good one here. What did SVF do different to adapt to the COVID pandemic challenges? I'm going to just say this. Before you begin, many months ago when the pandemic happened, I had just gotten back from the Hydraulic Institute show in Tucson, Arizona. And as I was returning, the lockdown and discussion of not doing anything for, I don't know, what is it, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, all that was starting to evolve. And I don't mind admitting it was a little bit of I guess you could say, a little bit of a gut check. I mean, really, what in the world is going on, right? See a lot of heads nodding. Yeah. And one of the things that I did was I actually developed this thing we still do today called the meetup. And twice a month now, we are meeting up with our friends and our customers and family. And of course, you guys are welcome to join. Twice a month, we would meet up and just have a massive Zoom. We'd have about 20, 25, 30 people from all over the world. I had them from Brazil to Mexico, Poland. I had just all over the place. And we just Zoomed in and just chatted about what's going on in your plant, in your factory, in your world. We would see people at their dining room table with a cat that would just jump up and walk across, and you couldn't help but just laugh because we didn't have much else to go on at that point. We just wanted to know that various pockets of people were just okay out there. And I dare say, I mean, I started it just to see how people were, and everyone kind of got into it, and it became sort of a social hour. It was just our way of conveying. But I guess that was a long way around to say that you guys are welcome. Anyone's welcome to join the meetup, and you'll see it. But what did you do different to adapt to the pandemic?
Well, it was a crazy time for our business, and I was actually on a phone call, conference call at night overseas to one of our factories over in Asia. And as it's on, I'm watching the news, and Governor Cuomo comes out and says, people are not allowed to be in offices anymore. You have to work remotely starting Friday. This was Wednesday. And I'm on the call, and I said, guys, I have to go. I have to get off the call. And I got off the call, and then they break news to California, and Governor Newsom says the same thing. You have to be out by Friday. We didn't know what to do. Fortunately, with SVF, and especially with our position in the pharmaceutical market, we were considered an essential business. So they let the business run. So manufacturing ran, and distribution, the warehouse, everything stayed open. But we had to shut everything else down and move people from an office to their home. And for some people, it was easy. Okay, they had a computer at home, they had a phone line, they had a printer, and internet access. It was a piece of cake. Other people did not. We had to get laptops for people. Our IT department was scrambling around. Luckily, they're pack rats. They save everything. And they resurrected so many old PCs. We got them out to people. We got cell phones to people. and we're able to continue to run the business. At the same time, we had to get our facilities COVID ready, following CDC guidelines. We didn't know what social distancing was. That was something that they used to, I guess, taught us in school when we were in high school to stay away from people. But social distancing, we had to put cleansing stations in, mask. We had to get temperature checks, and we had to retrain our employees. They didn't know what to do. We also had to establish protocols for customers. In other words, we do a lot of pickup business in our La Palma facility. People just come in and they're, the drivers, the delivery people. Hey, how you doing? Come on in, right? Get a cup of coffee. No, just stay out. We're sorry, but you can't come in. We had to do everything over again like that. We also did something else, and it was almost, Vince, as you were talking, one of those Zoom calls. We talked to somebody and they said, well, what are you going to do if an employee gets COVID? You're going to have to quarantine everybody. So we thought about that, and we ended up getting our shift and splitting it in two. So we had a morning shift and an afternoon shift. That way, if somebody, God forbid, caught COVID, we could quarantine that shift and that person, but still continue to run the business. And that was one of the better things we did. And we shared that with everybody that we knew that was running as a best practice. And it really worked well for us.
Yeah, that's, I think that was a great, see, this is what I was referring to. When you share that, you literally collect what others were doing, and it just makes it better for everybody, right? So one of the meetups that we had somebody say, we've taken wedges and left doors open to things like the restroom. If it's a modesty situation, I guess they would do things differently, but they would leave doors propped that you could just walk in without touching. Things like rearranging where a trash can is. If you're drying your hands, you don't have to touch the door, and you just throw it in as you're leaving. These things should have been done years ago anyway, I think. If you ever have to pull open a bathroom door to leave, that's a common thing. Everything should just be pushed, so you can use your elbow and just push it out of the way, little things like that. So plexiglass became a real big thing between stations, things like that. So I imagine a lot of ingenuity occurred over there, which is awesome. Getting the team set up, how did that go if somebody didn't have a computer or a cell phone or anything? I mean, did you ship it out to them? You drop it off?
We got them one. We sent it to them. People in our facility in Texas, they live in remote areas, and they didn't have internet out there. We had to get them access. I mean, it was a fire drill. It was a crazy time, and then this isn't working, and you can't go to a store. Everything's closed. It was nuts. But our IT department really they pulled through, and we got very good at it. We still have our Monday morning staff meeting, and I think we'll always do it. We'll always do it this way. It's nice. Much more efficient instead of trying to get everybody in, and it's an hour and everybody's prepared, and boom, 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 right. And we're done. It's amazing.
Speaking about that and an hour and everybody being prepared, Jay, tell me a little bit about webinars. I mean, did it evolve as a result of this, or were webinars always? Go ahead, please.
It kind of did. I think we started the webinars around May. So I think about a couple months after everyone moved out of the office, we waited a little bit, after all the shutdowns to see, whether it's going to be, I think in the beginning it was only for 2 weeks, and then it became till the end of March or till the end of April, but it sort of started to drag onwards. And one of the challenges we have, especially with our product line, is we typically like to engage customers, engage our distributors, our end users, our engineers, with different product trainings, lunch and learns like this one. And of course, with when COVID hit, no one was allowed to visit anyone. So there was no traveling. You couldn't get into an engineering firm's or a customer's building to do all these things. So we had to rethink our strategy with regards to reaching out to the market. So we started these webinars, like I said, around May. And we did, I think, about 2 a month from May till the end of the year. Some were for specific product information, and some were more general, more generic ones that everyone can kind of go into. And there was a lot of good feedback and a lot of good attendance that we got from it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Tell me a little bit more about the topics that you covered in these webinars. I mean, do you have some specifics that are noteworthy?
Yeah, like I said, there's 2 types that we did. One was for generic, kind of general information, and then the other was specific. But one of the first ones we did was called Valves 101, where we went through all the different valve designs, so that we can kind of talk, even if we didn't offer it, we just kind of gave out that knowledge and information to the market, so that they know what the difference is between like a ball valve and a butterfly valve or a gate valve, so different things like that. And that evolved from Valves 101 to Valves 201 to Valves 301 as we got deeper and deeper into the different applications. We also did a few that got into the automation side of it. So programming, fire safety, pneumatic, electric actuators, different things like that. So it's kind of a broad range that we covered for the entire, I think that from May to the end of the year, we covered a lot of ground.
Awesome. I think that's one of the things that like a webinar does is it just gives out, it gives back, it gives information that can and most likely is helpful to people that are seeking that kind of information. Where can somebody see that webinar today, or those webinars, 101, 102, 201, so forth, on valves? Where do they go to find that? Do you have a website that you want to share?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we took all those webinars, they're all recorded, and we're going to be releasing it on our website so that you can kind of review all these webinars, even the ones from the past, and kind of go through our curriculum of different products and all that stuff.
Great. Okay, well, let's what's the next webinar for SVF? Let's talk about that. I mean, what else do you have going?
So the next webinar that we're going to be doing is called Why Automate a Valve? So basically, you have all your manual valves and all that stuff. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to get into rationalizing why there's a need for automation in the valve industry. We're going to go through a few applications, but ultimately we're going to show that automation really does streamline different processes, and it even reduces risk, at the same time.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. We just talked about COVID. One of the things that was on everybody's radar was how can we remotely monitor or affect a change without actually sending Louis into the shop there or whatever. Can we do it from a smartphone, or can we do it from a computer? So that makes a lot of sense, I would imagine, to have an actuator that would turn a valve as opposed to manual.
Oh yeah. There was an HBO show, Chernobyl. I think it was released last year. But the very first episode, they were showing, what happened, that the disaster that happened. And in the first 10 minutes, as the alarms started to go off, there's these 4 guys going through the basement, and all they have was a line of valves, basically throughout the entire thing. And they were all gate valves. And the foreman was just yelling, the valves, the valves. And then you see all these guys kind of turning all the gate valves together because it was all done manually at that time. And it's just something to think about. In event of disasters and different things like that, you want to make sure that your risk is kind of reduced by, you're sitting in your control room, you're looking at your PLC and you're saying, okay, valves 1, 2, 3, 4 need to be shut down, and you can do it with a push of a button.
Yeah, much safer now. What's the benefit I'm asking, what's the benefit of an automation PR actuating a valve? And I guess we just kind of touched on that. So, I'm going through a list here, but what are some changes SVS is implementing in the business over the next 6 to 12 months? I'm kind of curious, where are we going from here?
Well, we have a lot on our plate right now, and I'll just highlight a couple things. By the end of the year, we'll have a Class 1000 clean room in our La Palma facility. This will enable us to clean, package, and label products as CFO, another acronym, but it's not Chief Financial Officer. It's clean for oxygen service with no contamination. So this is for product going into pharmaceutical, food and bev, and semiconductor type markets. We've also realized that we need more boots on the street. So we've added some sales reps around the country that will be calling on industrial distributors to try to expand from our core markets into the PVF, pipe, valve, and fitting world, more industrial distributors. And then we've also expanded our distribution footprint. We used to just have everything in La Palma, California. But now we have some of our products in New York, at our DC there, in Georgia, in Houston, and in Illinois. So we can get to the market faster, get to our customers faster, and hopefully outservice our competition. One other thing that we started doing, and we saw this at the height of the pandemic, our customers were utilizing the website more than ever. And, because we didn't have people calling on them, it was very different. People were working all kinds of different hours, and they relied on our website. We also realized that our website wasn't as easy to deal with as maybe it should be. It should have more things. It should be more standardized, easy to use, and we weren't there. So we started looking, what can we do? And that's when we realized we can't do this. And we then brought in an expert, and that's when Amy joined our company. And Amy can tell you what we're doing from a marketing standpoint, from a web standpoint, because I'm too old to know what to do there. So, Amy.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I don't know if that's entirely true.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But I think one of the benefits, I came in March, and when you come into a new company, you have this ability to see it with a fresh set of eyes, right? So even if you can't make heads or tails of most things, you can see where where things might not be so smooth. So starting with the websites, that was my first thing that I really looked at, and I said to myself, okay, well, this experience, there's a lot of content here, there's a lot of products, but it's not easy to find what you need. So we've been, for both brands, SVF and Maco, redeveloping the websites, and SVF should be up hopefully within the next month. We have one more page that we're looking at doing, but we looked at the user experience, putting it on a better platform. We were able to tie it into our customer relationship management system, our CRM system, which didn't exist before either. So we implemented that so we can see how people are interacting with the website. We offered multiple touch points, ways for people to ask us questions so we can get right back to them, forms and some automation to push people through cycles, just making it super easy to find what you need. There's a big focus also on the rebranding. So we're going to do the websites. And as we started putting pieces together, we kind of looked at, some of the branding and the logos and said, these aren't going to translate well on a really nice website. So we did take some time to redo some of the logos, which I don't know if that's
It's
blurry.
blurry.
Back.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's backwards. But
Right.
we did it in record speed as far as any other project that I've ever been on. So it's great. The two brands look nice together. They look great separate. We've done a lot of our marketing materials and just modernized them, made them more simple. And for me, a big focus is also on content. Like Jay was saying, we've got these webinars and people are always hungry for all sorts of information. So, we're looking at articles, more white papers. We've started with blogs, just writing articles and putting more things on social to share it out with people. So those are just sort of the beginning of what we're doing, because we've got, as you can hear, great stories and great solutions, and everybody should kind of know what we're doing.
Right. So I don't know if we want to get into the weeds on this, but Maco Norteca, can you guys explain that, or is that for another lunch and learn?
That could take a while, but Maco Norteca would be similar to SVF, and only they're servicing really the plumbing market, the irrigation market, and waterworks, not specialized the way SVF would be. But we make fittings, valves, pipe nipples, plumbing specialties, all behind the wall type stuff in your house or in your building that you never really think about. But Maco's been in business almost 70 years doing this, and they were one of the first people to start bringing valves in from offshore. And it was with the expansion of New York as the city was growing and going further out into Long Island. No one could keep up. So we found a source over in Italy and started importing the valves in. And that's how Maco Norteca came to business.
Fantastic. Well, I got to tell you, we've gone 40 minutes of just chatting, and it went by like that. I love this. And I want to address a couple of things. You mentioned white papers and content. Content's king, I believe. I'm a big believer in that, and welcome you to come over to the Empowering Pumps website and check it out. We've got a lot of content there. But I'd like to take that conversation offline and share a few things with you in a little bit. But as we wrap up, does anyone have a last parting comment or thought? And I'll kind of close it out here. Jay?
No, this was definitely great to be able to have, some avenue like this to be able to talk about the SVF, about, our plans and whatnot. But yeah, thank you so much, Vince, for having us.
My pleasure. Amy, thank you. Any
Yeah,
last parting shots? The new website will be ready soon, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost done, and it's got some great features to it. So I mean, definitely before the end of the year. So we'll,
outstanding,
get the word out to people once that is done.
Fantastic. And Jack, I don't want to throw a zinger at you, but since you're a Philly guy, Pat's cheesesteak or Geno's?
You got to go with Pat's. You got to go with Pat's.
My man, Jack. Folks, if you've enjoyed this, and I certainly have, I just want you to know that the way this works is you watch the video to the end, and then you like and share and subscribe. I'm just asking you to do that. And more importantly, share it with your friends, because this is the kind of thing I've said every time on my Lunch and Learns is my goal is to encapsulate information and put it on YouTube, not just for today, but for years to come. If some young man or woman in an engineering world or is looking for information or advice or how to resolve an issue, I think it would be a great way to encapsulate and share information. That's why it started. And I love having great people on like this. And you guys were awesome. And I just want to thank you and look forward to doing it again sometime.
Vince, thank you.